Ash Chain of Ash Chain Tattooing and Lady Chain Cosplay, thank you very much for coming on the Pay to Play podcast.
Oh, not a problem. It's a pleasure.
So, tell me, for starters, what are you digging right at the moment?
What am I digging? As in,
Yes.
what?
Basically, anything right now or in the recent past that is bringing a smile to your face and you're looking forward to getting back into doing or being involved with.
Oh, well, that would most definitely be cosplay because I've had a break for a little while, doing a couple more art projects, and I mean it's great being creative in the tattoo industry, as in I draw every day
Mm.
that I can plan and work on, cosplay at the same time, which is great because you can come up with concept art. So I'm
Mm.
really actually looking forward to Tropicon at the moment. So getting ready for that, doing some more artwork, getting prints ready. So that's what I'm striving for at the moment.
Mm. Mm. I know what you mean about having something else to be able to take a break from your main thing on. It's always a great way to recharge your batteries.
Oh, definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. I mean, with tattooing as well, it's with other jobs, if it's an office job or the like, you can do your work and then leave work and leave everything behind and go home just to your home life. Whereas
Mm.
tattooing, it actually kind of travels with you everywhere due to social media and just being a creative outlet as it is. So, the job's sort of like 24/7, but it's wonderful.
That's good. Well, look, let's start off by talking about that job. When did you first start taking pen or pencil to paper?
Well, you could say I've been a bit artistic all my life, but sometimes finger painting as a child doesn't count. So I would say high school was when I really got into art. Unfortunately, my art teacher and I did butt heads
Mm.
over the view on what was conceived as art, and I mean that's very much open to interpretation because it's a very personal thing. It's an expression of yourself in some ways, or it can just be like, you know what, I want to draw an elf, so you'll draw an elf. We really butted heads over that because she was very classical, whereas I was, I suppose, alternative in the
Mm.
way of art. So it started, my art interests really bloomed in high school. And then once out of high school, it kind of went on the back burner quite a lot until turned 18 and decided, you know what, I feel like I'm ready for a tattoo. So I went and got my first tattoo. And then I thought, you know what, I think I could do this. So that's pretty much when the ball started rolling.
Mm. So tell me about that first tattoo experience. For starters, if you don't mind saying, of course, what did you get? And um, can you tell me a little bit about what was happening at that moment of realization, or maybe when you actually looked back at the experience and sort of realized it was for you? Can you remember what triggered that?
Well, my first tattoo was an anchor on the side, so it was only on the side of my hip, so it was only a small one.
Mm.
And it's like people you get Arthur or Martha, people that want to start off small and then go bigger, or people that just want to get a whole back piece first off.
Mm.
Um, I I was at a tattoo convention actually, and an artist had a spot available and was able to draw a design that I liked. So we set up and then we started getting tattooed, and I suppose it was the fact that you could share your artwork permanently with someone and that it would become part of them, and that um, you would be able to spread that sort of love for tattooing and share it with other people.
Mm.
I suppose that's what was the main attraction to it for me. The fact that there's pen and paper and then there's skin, and people are a wonderful canvas. They're more like a walking billboard for your artwork, and they're more, if they obviously they love the piece, so they're more than happy to say, oh, Ash Chain did this, and oh, I love it. You should go and see her. So that's a really good word of mouth business opportunity there as well.
Mm.
But I suppose that's where it really all started.
It sounds like it might have been brewing away with you for a little while because you mentioned that you didn't just go into a tattoo store thinking I'm going to get a tattoo. You went to a convention. So yeah, what got you along there? Was it well? Yeah, tell me what drew you to attending a convention of tattooists.
Well, at the time, I was a big 1950s enthusiast, so
Hmm.
I did love all the pin-up aspects, the cheesecake sort of smiles and poses that you see, like artists like Gil Elvgren did in paintings of women, or like in provocative but really cute poses and all that sort of thing. So I really liked that at the time. So I actually was entering into a pinup competition at the time with a few of my friends at the tattoo convention. Um, because rockabilly and 1950s, that's very much tied in with the tattoo community, being the fact that there is the old tattoo artist Sailor Jerry. So he really started the revolution of tattooing sailors, and they were generally the first, not exactly probably the first Western people to get very commercialized tattoo work. So that still transpired today, and you can still actually see his work on a lot of material or clothing, or even actually people. So yes, that's why I was at the tattoo convention because of the pinup competition, which I actually came second in, which was wonderful. So it was on the last day of the tattoo convention, after walking around talking to artists, that I actually decided to get my tattoo.
Oh, fantastic, and congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. That was many, many years ago.
Yeah. So, you got your first tattoo and you had this realization that it was something that you were interested in doing. Tell me how you then started pursuing that, making that idea into a reality. What were some of the first steps that you took?
Well, the tattoo industry is actually it's a very hard industry to get your foot into. So I asked around, I did my research, and what I found to be the best way, and the probably the wisest way to do it was um, draw as much as you can, build up a big portfolio of what you do, because there are some artists that do a few different styles, whereas mine is very noticeable, and that's what I do. I don't try and do realism or black and gray realism or anything like that. I do neo-traditional sort of comic book contemporary. I know that's a very big umbrella, but that's what I do, and it's quite recognizable my work. So I did a lot of that. I did a lot of drawing, lots of coloring, everything like that. Built up a portfolio, and I took it around to some studios, and a lot of them were very hard, very um, not welcoming,
Hmm.
unfortunately, because they I suppose it's very hard sometimes. It's getting easier now, and women are a little bit more accepted into this industry, but it's a very male-dominated industry, and
Hmm.
so a lot of the studios I went to were, they'd have the front counter girl, but there wouldn't actually be a female tattooist. Anyway, what transpired was I was friends with an artist called Craig Goss, and I didn't want to approach him with my portfolio because he was a friend, and I didn't want to sort of be like, oh, hey, because we're friends, would you take me on as an apprentice? And that would stretch the friendship. So I didn't approach him. So what actually came about was he caught wind that from another friend that I was looking for an apprenticeship, and he contacted me and said, what are you doing? Don't be silly. I'd love to have you along. So I was extremely lucky, very, very lucky. That's not to say that I didn't put in the hard yards to try and get in elsewhere, but I
Hmm.
was very fortunate that Craig took me on. When I say it's an apprenticeship, it's more like a workplace traineeship, because it's not something that's run through the government. It's not something that's funded by the government. It's you go in, you have your mentor, and they teach you everything they know.
Right.
Yes, so that is how I got into the industry.
Hmm. What sort of training is involved from going to that point where you're approaching places with your portfolio and to when you're actually given, and apologies if I'm using the wrong term here, the inking needle for the first time?
Mm-hmm. Well, what you do, there is a series of, I suppose, things that you need to learn. So, what you very much well should do first is get your cross-contamination certificate. So you go in and you learn, how to clean tools properly, how to sterilize, what to do, what not to do. Very common sense stuff, but it's stuff that you need to know. And as we all know, you can't really prove anything unless you have that piece of paper. So that was pretty much the first thing I did. And then you go to the studio every day. You look after the other artists. So you sort of become sort of like a tea and tidy, but you watch what they do. They teach you about setting up your machines, what needles to use for which lines, because there's several different needles that are used for different line thicknesses, for different widths of shading, or anything like that. And there are different machines that do different things. So the next step after that really is getting together all your equipment. So that's very costly because majority of tattoo machines at the moment, a lot of people call them guns. I'm not really a fan of saying, "Oh, yes, here's my gun," but it's a tattoo machine. So they're very expensive. Usually they're around $400 to $700 each. So they are obviously very vital, as well as needles. Needles can be anywhere from $30 to $50 a box, even more. Then you have your trolley, your setup, all your disposable equipment. So you can either use sterilized equipment or you can use disposable equipment. I'm a fan of disposables because there's not an awful lot of cleaning and there's no chance of contamination or anything like that if you don't clean properly,
Mm.
which I've never done in my life. Never not cleaned anything properly. I'm very much a clean freak when it comes to this industry, and it's made me that so as well in life. So everything has a place and everything must be in place. That is my motto.
All right then. So you completed your apprenticeship with Craig, and you
Yes.
started tattooing. Now, one question I thought of while you were talking is, you had that art background, and you're interested in getting a career as a tattooist. Are there, and if so, what are they? Are there any differences between drawing, basically just drawing for paper for drawing's own sake, and preparing a design for skin?
Yes, there is, because what you're drawing, say if you're just, wanting to draw something for yourself, then, you draw what's in your head or whatever comes to you. Whereas clients will ask, they'll say, "Oh, hey, I really like your style. Can you please draw me a unicorn or something like that?"
Mm.
So you'll draw something up for them, and they'll be like, "Oh, I sort of envisaged it more like this angle and this color, or with more sparkles." So yeah,
Mm.
there is a very big difference, and we definitely try and accommodate obviously the clients as much as we can and get their design perfect, because after all, it is going on them for life.
Yes. So from the sounds of it, it's pretty much the standard designer client relationship when it comes to creating these kinds of works, because uh, you hear that tendency all the time, the back and forth between the designer and the person who wants the work done. Oh yes, this doesn't look right. Can you make it look a little bit more like this? Whether it's logo design or website design or anything like that.
Yes, of course. It's very much the designer-client relationship,
Mm,
very much so. The industry revolves around that pretty much.
yeah. Have you ever had someone actually, because you said you developed your own portfolio beforehand, come up, basically look through your books and go, you know what, can I have this, please?
Yes, there have been designs that I have drawn up, and I do it quite regularly actually. That I just draw up, and it might just be something from my head, and be like, oh yeah, that's cool. You know, look at this little Lego man or whatever, and someone will be like, oh hey, I really like that. Can I get it? And yes, that does happen a lot, and that's where an awful lot of my work comes from, is just from people liking what I do and wanting what I do on them for life.
Hmm. Now, I have to ask because I haven't been able to find out myself. How many years have you actually been in the tattoo industry for now?
I have been in the industry for about just over 3 years now. So yes, it's been a wild ride. So just over 3 years now, and there is the debate that a tattoo apprenticeship is formally, informally 4 years, but that all depends on yourself and your mentor. If you know, people out there can be wildly talented and pick up things incredibly fast, whereas other people may be a little bit slower in that. So it all revolves around you and how you can progress, and your learning abilities, I suppose.
Hmm.
Also, clearly your tattoo abilities, and what your mentor thinks. So if they think, you know what, you know, you're actually teaching me things at the moment, I think you're ready. So they generally say, you know what, you're a full-fledged tattoo artist now. You're no longer an apprentice, you're no longer a trainee, you are an artist in your own right. So
Hmm.
that very much comes down to you and your mentor.
Hmm.
So yes, I've been tattooing for 3 years, and apprenticeship usually informally, formally 4 years. But that does change for a lot of artists.
Okay. Now, you mentioned a little earlier on that when you were trying to break in, tattooing was very much a male-dominated industry. In your 3 years so far, have you noticed any changes in that regard?
A little bit, yes. There are definitely are more female tattoo artists. I should say, more emerging out of the woodwork and becoming more of a presence in the industry, whereas it was very male dominated. It still very much is. I'm not saying that, you know, we're equal in any way, but as much as you know, we'd all love that. But women, we definitely hold our own in the industry.
Hmm.
You know, a lot of people still think, you know, oh, tattooing is still just skulls and crossbones and evil things. It's
Hmm.
not at all. I do very cutesy animals, and there are women out there that do that darker side of tattooing, but they bring their own flair to it. Everyone has their own sort of style and flair. So I suppose what I've noticed in the industry is that for some women, a way for them to get noticed and to get more social media followers is to post, you know, selfies and a lot of pictures of themselves rather than what they actually do. And I'm not about that at all.
Hmm.
I look at, you know, artists that I admire, that are female artists in the industry that are very well known and are very well respected, and I look at their work and I was like, you know what, they never had to do anything like that. They never actually had to put their image or their body out there for them to get
Hmm.
followers, because you know, I look at it as, if I want people to follow me, I want them to follow me, or you know, come to me because of my work, not what I look like or not what I've done or anything like that. I want them to come to me purely as a professional thing, to say, hey, I love your work. I want to get a piece from you because I want to be seen as a professional, and not as, you know, selfies and everything like that, and for people just to, you know, become five-stage clingers because of what you look like.
Yeah. Hmm.
That is a very harsh way of putting things, but unfortunately, that's what it is about. There is either, I'd say it's like a 50-50 possibly, that, you know, there are those very, very respected female artists, and then artists, other female artists that do put their bodies and their image out there. But you know what? That is their prerogative, and if it works for them and they're getting work, that's, you know, Godspeed to them.
Mm, mm. I guess it can still be a pretty tough old world out there, and you've got to make your mark any way you can.
Oh, most certainly.
Still, yeah. Now, while you were doing your apprenticeship, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, and my apologies if I'm wrong. You are from the Brisbane area, is that right?
Yes, most certainly am. I have been a born and bred a Brizzy girl.
Which, of course, makes your most recent change very interesting because you have relocated yourself from Brisbane up here to Cairns. How did that come about?
Well, actually, I started dating a tattooist that lives up in Cairns. So we decided that we've been dating for long enough, and we thought, you know what, it's time. Let's make the move. So I was the one to make the move because he coincidentally part owns a studio up there. So it was easier for me to be like, oh, well, I already have a job to go to because I can just work from his studio. So that is exactly how it happened.
Well, congratulations. And how have you been finding it so far?
Oh, apart from the weather, it's wonderful. The weather in Cairns is something to get used to, but the studio is wonderful. The people are great. There's so many different characters, as in every city in Cairns.
Mm, mm,
But it is very much different to what I am actually used to down in Brisbane. The studio that I'm in now, it's got this lovely shop front, and it's very welcoming and everything, like very open to people, and people can come in and have a look at your portfolio. Whereas the studio that I was in before, it was a private studio, so it was we didn't get walk-ins, what we call walk-ins, so people coming in saying like, "Oh, hey, I would love a little bit of script or something like that." It was very much via appointment only
mm,
because of our location, and like everything, it's location, location, location. Where I was, it was in an industrial area, so it doesn't get an awful lot of foot traffic, unfortunately. But in saying that, I did get a very specific um, workload, really. So people that did come to me were coming to me for what they wanted from me, so
mm.
my work. Whereas up in Cairns, you do get that walk-in element that people don't know you, they don't know who you are, they just know that you're a tattooist, and they have something in mind that they want to get from you, but it's not something that you specialize in. So it's very easy to do script and all that sort of thing. So it is very very good to sort of be have that diversity in your tattoo curriculum to do your style, but also lend yourself to something like easier things. I suppose people bring in like quite easy designs, and you're like, that's okay. My abilities are, I can do that.
Mm.
Then people actually will be like, "Oh, I got this done by Ash Chain." So you do get a more work with walk-ins,
Mm.
whereas I get an awful lot, or not as much, I should say, and not as much work down in Brisbane as I did up in Cairns for tattooing. But yes, it was a different environment because it was a private studio and it was via appointment only. We'd advertise via word of mouth. And to look at the front of the tattoo studio I was in Brisbane, you wouldn't think it was a tattoo studio at all. uh, but you walk in, and we had a lovely showroom and all that sort of thing, a gallery, and then upstairs we had a studio. But it is very very different working in Cairns than to Brisbane, and I love it. It's really wonderful.
Now, one thing I want to ask you about is from the sounds of it, I mean, nowadays any tattoo artist can actually build themselves a decent social media profile, which can, in some ways, um, free them from maybe being anchored to a particular studio or location. I mean, I imagine it was some help when you did relocate from Brisbane to Cairns, even though on one hand you had left a chunk of your client base behind. But do you still find that people will see you on Facebook and get in touch, even though they're not in your geographic location at the moment, and ask if you can do work for them?
Oh yes, definitely. There are a couple of international cosplayers that actually do follow my tattoo page as well, and they do say, "Oh, when you come over to LA or when you come over to Brooklyn or anything like that," and they'll be like, "Oh, I'd love to get some work from you." So there is the aspect of guest spotting. So that's where you are traveling. So you could travel from Cairns to Brisbane, and you could do a guest spot in a studio down there. And that's when you only do maybe a couple of days to a week at one studio, and they'll let you work there. And that way, those people that are wanting work from you but can't afford to travel to you can just come to their local, well, wherever you are in their city, and get work from you. So
Mm.
that's one thing that is very, very big in the tattoo community, because it is such a worldwide thing that people from, America or the UK will come over and guest spot in Australia because they have connections with an artist there, or they say, "Oh yeah, of course you can work from our studio. That would be wonderful. I love your work." Da da da. So it's a big community sort of bonding thing, I suppose.
Yeah. Um, so, look, I just have to ask, and if you don't feel like name dropping, that's no problem. But look, tell me, who are these international cosplayers who are, have approached you for work?
Well, one, her name is Neferine. She does a lot of beautiful warbler work. She's was just at Dragon Con with her Skyrim thing, so she does a fair bit. But the rest of the people, I couldn't actually give you their proper names because they're all just on Instagram.
Ah, right.
And even her, that's her Instagram alias. So a lot of people, myself included, yeah, some people suggest to come up with an alias so that your actual name isn't connected with cosplay in a way, just because it's a safety thing.
Mm.
You do have those hard out people that are just like, "Oh, I really love your work and I'd really like to meet you." And, "Oh, hey, you're in Brisbane. Let's meet up. Oh, hey, your name is Ashley. Let's look you up in the phone book or something."
Mm.
I'd say that's a very extreme thing, but there are those cases that have happened to people. Like you can read online and stuff like that, like BuzzFeed or whatever, where people have actually tracked other people down. So I can't actually give you their proper names, but it's just more like Instagram aliases.
Look, I completely understand the proper names. I'm basically just looking for linkage and that sort of stuff. So
Oh,
yeah, if they would be comfortable with just sharing their Instagram aliases around, then that is fine. So, but anyway, you've mentioned Neferine, so um, but actually that does bring me back to the other aspect of yourself that I wanted to talk with you about a little bit, is cosplay. So how long have you been in that hobby for?
I have been in cosplay as a hobby for, I would say, maybe 7 years now.
Mm.
That's not an exact number, but yes, I'd say probably about seven. I've been attending the pop culture events such as Supernova, and the most recent one, obviously, is Oz Comic Con. So I've been attending those for possibly 8 to 9 years, and then I felt comfortable within myself to be like, oh, I would really love to be Poison Ivy this time. So, you make your first costume and you go there, and you can be someone else for a day, which is really, really wonderful. And when your skills grow in that aspect, people recognize you as, oh, hey, you're Lady Chain, or hey, I really loved your Dragon Ball Z Vegeta you did last time, or you can really um build up yourself with that, and it's a big confidence thing as well. But it's a double-edged sword on that one, because there are those trolls out there that will actually come along and be negative. But
Mm.
I have not had that experience. When you do get more high profile, that is very much, you're more susceptible to that, because a lot more people know you, and people are very much oh too content to tear you down.
Mm.
Unfortunately, you
Mm.
see it like, as to name one, Jessica Negri. She does get an awful lot of flack for putting herself out there, and her body out there a bit more. But hey, God, good on her, because look at how many followers she's got. Look how successful she is. That it's amazing. But she, a lot of people, it's they can be soul crushing, their words, but she just
Mm.
keeps going on, and it's fuel to her fire, and it's amazing. It's wonderful. Um, yes.
Mm. So, how about you? How much time are you able to put into cosplay, say on a weekly basis? And yeah, how long does it usually take to develop a costume? I mean, looking at your photos of Toriel, especially, um, which you've currently got on your Lady Chain webpage, it looks like not just a very well done costume, but you've also got the hairstyling, the makeup, and those prosthetic ears. I mean, where is that balance between made and bought, say, in that costume, for an example, and how long does it take to put together?
Oh, well, makeup only takes me about an hour. The prosthetic ears, I bought them online, um, from a specialist over in the States. The hair, I actually there is a lot of braiding involved, so unfortunately, I'm not that talented with my hands, and I can't really see the back of my head. So when it comes to hair, obviously, but I go to a hairdresser friend and she does that for me. So that takes about an hour to do my hair as well. So that's you've got about maybe 2.5 hours there as well. The costume itself, now initially there is the Tariel and then there's the Tariel 2.0.
Aha.
So yes, yes, it has had a makeover. The first one I made, it possibly took me about altogether, maybe 5 days to a week to complete everything because I made my own pattern for the corset, for the big sort of gown cloak that she's got, and I made the corset myself. I made the cloak myself. The leggings, though, I bought. The boots, quite clearly, I bought because I'm definitely not a cobbler at all. Um, and then you have her props, which was her quiver, which was made out of leaves. But in the movie, because you do your research and you do have a look around for high res images on the internet or something like that. The way I actually modeled my Tariel was off of a Weta Workshop figurine of her because there were lots of angled pictures and close ups. So that was the best at the time because the Desolation of Smaug had only just come out and it was out at the movies and it actually wasn't out on DVD yet, so you couldn't really have it on your computer or on your TV and pause it every time she was in scene so you could have a look at her costume close up or anything. So mine was actually modeled off of a little figurine. So there is her props, as I said. There is her quiver where her arrows go. I made that all by hand. I got some big fake leaves from the local craft shop, and I sewed them together to make the same shape as what she had. I sculpted some of the solid gold aspects that are on her quiver as well, and then I cheated when it came to her bow and one of her arrows as well. I actually bought it from Weta because it was a Weta replica, and they make all the props for the majority of the props for Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. So I bought the Weta replica, and it is my pride and joy of that whole costume. But as I said, there is a Tariel 2.0. So with my first corset, it wasn't made out of very good materials, made out of vinyl, so that does have the tendency to rip over time. So once that has seen the end of its days, I simply just cut that one up, and I had the pieces there quite easily, so I could cut out more pieces out of different material and remake the corset, and that only took me about 3 hours to do that all over again.
Hmm.
So Tariel, the first one probably took me 5 days to possibly a week to complete. But there is a lot of sewing involved and a lot of problem solving in that respect as well because I'm not a professional seamstress at all, but I still fumble my way around and it ends up working, which is wonderful.
Hmm. Now, you mentioned problem solving, which actually made me think of something. A lot of the time, cosplayers' outfits are based on clothing of characters that are out of comic books, out of cartoons and anime, and even out of computer games. So, how have you found? What are some of the problems that you have encountered trying to translate costumes that really only exist as sketches or even as 3D models, which of course are not necessarily accurate representations of real clothing, when you've been trying to translate those into something that you as a real human being are going to are wanting to wear?
Hmm. Unrealistic body types. That is the biggest one.
Mm.
So, a lot of anime characters, you could either have the unrealistic, oh, well, sorry, I shouldn't say unrealistic because there are people or women out there that do have these body types. So for me, it's unrealistic. So you do have, the very slim and slender anime types, or you have the very tiny waist and very big busted anime
Mm.
types. So, I could say that a lot of people dress to their body types, which is wonderful. But that should not restrict you at all. Cosplaying is about doing what you love and expressing yourself in that way.
Mm.
And there should be no body shaming in cosplay because you're doing what you love and no one should shame you for that.
Indeed.
So so people say, "Oh, wow, look at that person. They're too overweight or they're too skinny for that costume. They shouldn't be wearing that." That's very wrong, and you should never do that to anyone because
Mm.
they have themselves out there and they're showing their confidence, which is wonderful. So unrealistic body types is one that you have to conquer, but then again, you have to translate it to the actual real world. There is plastic surgery, there is all that sort of thing, but that you are a hard out cosplayer when you do that sort of thing.
Mm.
um, but sometimes it's mainly props that become a harder thing to do when you're trying to translate a character into a real life cosplay. Um, Majority of the time there will be, materials that you can buy. If you want to make armor, for instance, Warbler or EVA foam, it's great for that sort of thing because majority of the time, we're not all blacksmiths and we can't really work with metal. So, me in particular.
Yeah, not to mention
So,
not to mention the fact that if you went all metal, you would probably wind up with quite a heavy costume.
oh, most certainly. That's one thing that you really need to look at is how, I suppose, ergonomic it's going to be and how economic and price wise. Because when you start looking into using different materials, even from like Spotlight or Lindcraft or anything like that, things can get very, very expensive. And Warbler, which is a thermoplastic, which will heat up with heat, sorry, which will bend with heat. That is not cheap at all. And then EVA foam, that stuff, it can be cheap, but you just really need to shop around. So things can be done to achieve that look that you're after with an anime character or say a medieval character or someone from Lord of the Rings. It is achievable. You just need to really figure out what you're doing first. Put pen to paper, do a sketch, do some problem solving, watch YouTube tutorials. That is one thing that has really taught me a lot with cosplay. Like there is a lady. She is incredible. Her name is Kamoi Cosplay. She is just amazing. She makes armor for a living, as in cosplay armor out of
Mm.
Warbler and EVO foam, and she does LED lighting. She's just absolutely mind blowing. So she was a massive help to me when I was creating, started building armor and all that sort of thing for. I did a Vegeta, so he has a top suit armor, so I used Warbler for that as well. So she has all these books and doing your research and having a look around, finding your inspiration. That is very much key to cosplay.
Mm. Now, uh, with cosplay and tattooing at the moment, on pay to play, it sounds very much like tattooing, it's your main job and it's currently paying all your bills. That's pretty much right, isn't it?
Yes, that is spot on.
So, and by the way, congratulations on making that a success on the pay to play front. I'm sure there's many who would envy you. Now, with cosplay, from the sounds of it, right at the moment, that is a hobby, pretty
Yes.
much. That said, though, I know that you, in July this year, you're going to be attending Tropicon, but you're not just going to be an attendee. You have got yourself a stand there,
Yes, yes, I do.
and And from the sounds of it, that's actually going to, rather than focusing perhaps on tattoos, it's going to be the Lady Chain stand. Is that
Yes,
right? Mm.
yes, it is because Lady Chain is Lady Chain cosplay. Or that's my cosplay alias, and then Lady Chain, that's my tattoo alias. A lot of people in the industry as this, they know me as Ash, so it's not a problem at all.
Mm.
So I I chose to oh well, for one thing, thank you very much to Charlie, who's running the whole Tropicon. It's amazing. I'm so excited. But I will be having a booth there, and I will be selling prints that I've done, and the majority of them are all sort of comic book related or video game related.
Mm.
Because you know everyone loves that sort of thing.
Of course.
I know I do. And I will also be there representing myself as a local cosplayer, and you know, I'm part of a community down here, like a little group called Brisbane Cosplayers and Brisbane cosplayers as well. But because I am no longer in Brisbane, I really want to reach out to the cosplay community of Cairns and you know, do some networking there, get to know them, and you know, you get together and you do craft days. So that's where you share your knowledge with them, and everyone brings along their costume to work on. So that's one thing I'm really looking forward to is meeting a lot of local Cairns cosplayers.
Mm. And
Yes.
the good news is there is a small, but there is a local scene up here, so that will be fantastic. But so is this the first time that you've actually sold prints or attempted to monetize cosplay as a hobby?
No, no. I did do it for Oz Comic Con, the first Oz Comic Con in Brisbane. I did do it then as well, and it was an absolute hoot. It was so much fun. So I sold my prints there, but I just sold them. Um, I just sold them as myself, as just you know, Ash Chain or Lady Chain. I sold them just as that. I didn't bring cosplay to it just because I thought, you know what, let's sell these prints and let's let them put a face to the name, and you know, sort of introduce myself as myself basically,
Mm.
because I knew if I was cosplaying, I would want to walk around. I wouldn't want to stand at my booth.
Yeah.
So I just did it as myself that time. But every other time I've cosplayed, it's just been for cosplay purposes, just to have fun, meet up with friends, be someone else for a day. But yes, I haven't really tried to monopolize myself as a cosplayer to earn money in that respect. I
Mm.
haven't done that to be like, oh, hey, this is what I want to do for a living. I would
Yeah.
love to incorporate that as a you know, as a I suppose a paying hobby. I would love to do that one day, but at the moment, tattooing is my money roll.
Yeah. Well, it's good to hear that you are, taking steps in that regard. And if that's one thing that I eventually hope to do in getting paid to play myself, is just make sure that I'm not leaning on one particular source of income. So I like the idea that you, even though tattooing is your main thing, you do have that extra option there of having multiple ways of getting paid to play. Um, so in terms of print sales, how usually, without going into specific dollar figures, after you've of course put the time in actually manufacturing the prints, how ahead of the game have you found you've come out in the past?
Majority of the time, I am more than happy to make sure I break even.
Mm.
So, you know, with investing money into booth costs and travel expenses and all that sort of thing, I'm not, you know, it would be wonderful to sell every single one of my prints and be well ahead of myself. But breaking even is wonderful.
Mm.
Just covering those expenses, it's great. But you know, it's wonderful to get recognized as, you know, as an artist, and people coming up to you going like, oh my gosh, did you draw this? Oh my gosh, this is amazing. And that is wonderful. That is something
Mm.
that is, you know, acknowledgement, recognition, and praise. That's three really, really amazing things for an artist, and it's confidence booster, fuels
Yeah.
the fire.
Yeah. How do you break even? By adding a column in your ledger called satisfaction.
Yes, yes, exactly. Yes, very true.
No, yeah, and sometimes it's, I guess, when it comes down to it, the main reason we do all these things is just, well, we sort of want people to see us as ourselves, including all the crazy things that we enjoy doing. That you almost feel like mainstream society would just cock an eyebrow at and go, huh, "That's weird," and move on.
Yes, yes.
Mm.
Unfortunately, there is the mainstream society that do like, oh my gosh, why is she wearing elf ears? That's so weird. You still do have those people, and you know what? That's fine. That's what they aren't into it. That's no problem. That's their choice. And what, me wearing elf ears walking down the street, that is my choice.
Hmm. Now, by the time this podcast goes out, it will be about a month after this chat. But today I know that you're going to be flying down to Brisbane a little bit later on. Are you going to be doing any work or going to any events down there?
No, there's nothing quite on at the moment. There is a Gold Coast Supernova in April, but that's it's April, so I'll be back in Cairns on Tuesday.
Hmm.
But no cosplay events or anything. Although as I still am in the process of moving all my stuff, as in figurines, comic books, and moving comic books. Moving comic books, I have to tell you, in a box is like moving several trees. It's moving a forest. It's unbelievable. So at the moment, I have finally packed my sewing machine, and I will be bringing it up to Cairns with me, and I cannot wait.
Fantastic. Look, okay, I've got to ask, as you've just raised the subject of comic books, what do you read? What do you enjoy?
Oh, so much. um, Look, Batman. I am a number one Bat fan, but in saying that, Poison Ivy is my number one crush. I do love redheads. Um, so I read vampire, fiction stuff like that as well. A bit of horror here and there. What I do really, really enjoy at the moment is Rat Queens. That's
Oh, you have
oh
just named my crush,
ah,
Stepan Sejic,
he's
the
amazing.
artist on Rat Queens, yes?
Yes, I love it because it's like it's these rebellious girls going out and kicking butt, and there's a female dwarf in it, and she's growing her beard back, and it's so cool actually because she is a redhead, and myself I am a product redhead. I would love to cosplay her one day because she's just got such this awesome demeanor about her, and oh, Rat Queens is actually my number one crush at the moment.
I am reading Death Vigil of
Oh, that
Stepan's. I am absolutely loving that, especially um his group dynamics. I don't know, I kind of like reading things where the characters are people who I would love to hang around with, and that mob of assorted folks that he's assembled in the Death Vigil, they're hilarious and they're funny, and um they're a family in the best way, even though bad stuff is about to happen to them, and bonds are getting broken and rebuilt in different ways. But I like them as them enough that I just want to keep reading about them.
Yes, yeah. That's one thing that it's quite amazing that you form a bond with these fictional characters because they're written and created so well that you're like, you know what? They would be people that I would love to, I would love them to be my neighbors or my roommates or my best friends.
Yeah.
It's wonderful that you can create that bond with a comic book. It's great.
Mm. Um, so, as I think we're sort of getting to the wind up point on this, um, what three things uh, do you wish maybe that someone had told you at the beginning of when you were getting into either tattooing or cosplay, that you think would be of help of somebody else who's sort of looking at those as ways of getting paid to play?
Um, Bit of a hard one, I suppose. I suppose one thing with tattooing is, and I'm going to quote something very, very mainstream. Haters gonna hate. So, unfortunately, you will get those people out there that will be like, oh yeah, that doesn't look very good. And it's the whole thing. If you haven't got anything nice to say, don't say it at all,
Mm,
because it may not be something that they like. But I suppose confidence is key. You have
mm,
to be 100% behind your artwork and say, like, I know this is good. I know I can draw. And you know what? If it's not, that's fine. It's something that you need to have a thick skin when it comes to tattooing, definitely,
mm,
especially in society as well, because there is that massive sort of social side of things where people don't like to see tattoos. So, you can either choose to cover up and not offend people, accidentally, obviously, not on purpose, or you can choose to be proud about it and not get all tangled up in the whole, oh, they don't like my tattoos, they find them offensive. You need to have a thick skin.
mm.
That is one thing as well. Have a thick skin. Um, Possibly, I'm trying to think of another thing for tattooing that I wish somebody would have told me. Hmm.
Well, no worries. I mean, heck, I'm happy with three things total. So, if regardless of whether it's tattoo or cosplay, just go with whatever comes to mind.
Yes. Okay. Cosplay, tattooing, be confident. Um, was something else I wish someone would have told you. I honestly can't really think of a lot of things. Tattooing, actually cosplay, you do have to trip over a couple of things. You do have to be like, oh, okay, maybe I'll approach this from a different angle. Yeah, I'm really sorry, Rob. I can't really think of
That's quite all
things.
right, Ash. No worries. So, uh, we've mentioned a little earlier on that you are going to be at Tropicon in July. You also mentioned that there is another Brisbane Con coming up, and I'm very sorry. I know you said it, but all of a sudden I'm having a blank on the name. Is it Supernova in Brisbane that you're going to be going to?
Supernova at the Gold Coast. I
Ah,
don't think I'll be attending this one at the moment, just because I haven't got any sort of new cosplays up and running, and I really, really want to focus on my uh, getting myself out there and my career up in Cairns at the moment. And
yeah.
so, flying down to Brisbane, its return flights can be up to $300, and you have travel, food, accommodation, so things like that. It really adds up. So. I will definitely, though, be attending the Supernova in Brisbane in November, most definitely.
Mm. So we've got Tropicon and we've got Brisbane Supernova in November. Any other plans in the near future at the moment?
um, I suppose next year, my boyfriend and I, we really, really want to go to San Diego Comic Con.
Ah.
So that one is always seems just to be that little bit out of reach. We really want to go, but again, expenses, getting all that money saved up. So that one is definitely something that is aimed for every year.
Mm. And finally, if after hearing this podcast, people want to find out a little bit more about you and your tattoo work and your cosplay, where can they find you?
Not a problem. So with my tattoo work, I am on Instagram as lady underscore chain, and then also Instagram for cosplay is lady underscore chain underscore cosplay. You can find me on Facebook as Ash Chain Tattooist or Lady Chain Cosplay as well. So any queries, any questions, I'm more than happy to answer, whether it be tattoo related, whether it be cosplay related, go for it.
And if someone happens to be in the Cairns area and they are interested in getting you to tattoo them, where can they come find you there?
They can come find me at 62 Shield Street, Studio 13.
Fantastic. Ash Chain, thank you very much for coming on Pay to Play. It's been good fun having you on.
Oh, not a problem. Thank you for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.